order, City of Forest Park Council Meeting number 1357, July 6, 2020. I will ask Councilman Brown if you would lead us into the pledge.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I guess I'll do stand up. All right, I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag of the
United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Brown,
Present.
Herbie,
Present.
Holt, Johnson,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Moore, Neff,
Here.
Sylvester.
Is there a motion, Councilman Herbie?
I would move to excuse Councilwoman Holt.
Second.
We move in second that we excuse Councilwoman Holt. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to excuse, let it be known by the sign of voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Councilwoman Holt is excused. Item 2 is minutes. You should have all gotten copies of the minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none. We'll move to item number 3, presentation. We have none listed. Item 4, communications from the public. This is time for citizens to comment on the public. I'm not going to read this because we have a process in motion in place for them, and Don just related to that, for people to contact us by a time certain if they have comments or they have communications. Don, do you want to talk about those now, or you want to do that under your report?
Well, we did have essentially 2 topics that were that we did receive communication on. I'll hold up on the communication with regards to the ordinance number 1920 for the regulating short-term rentals in residential districts, and I'll bring up those comments at that time. The other was with regards from an individual citizen, and just to let you know, with regards to I would say complaints and also suggestion, but with regards to, I think it ultimately runs down to the need to provide education to our citizens in terms of what the rules are, the regulations are. And we've had this discussion in a bigger sense. We're talking about like a welcome wagon package and things like that. Welcome to the community, welcome to the neighborhood, and but we also need to let people know what's acceptable and not acceptable in terms of our zoning laws, and then teach people that, not necessarily have to. It's easier to teach it at the front end and to let people know at the front end than it is to have to come back and do enforcement on these things. So we'll be looking to take her suggestions and her comments and complaints, and I think the issue will be with regards to and I think I've sent you the letters. Or the letter and or the email, and I think the solution there is a bigger solution for the entire community that not only takes in this one instance, which we will get to, and we'll talk to the folks there about it, but also takes in the bigger city and the bigger issue of welcome to the city. Here's what your neighbors expect. Here's what the city expects, and that way we can have a better place and raise the quality of life for all the citizens. So. That'll be the end result of what we're talking about, and we'll be getting more information.
Okay, thank you, sir. We will go next into item number 5, report to the planning committee. The first of those being Ways and Means. Councilman.
Yes. Just to mention that we did have an Economic Development Commission meeting last week virtually, and did make a recommendation on resolution that's coming up this evening on redevelopment incentive. Civil Service is going to be meeting this coming Wednesday The Tax Incentive Review Commission, to which I'm a liaison, is going to be meeting virtually on Thursday morning. And I would remind people that our environmental awareness programs are still ongoing. If you want to keep on top of what's happening, please go to forestpark.org/environmental. That will conclude my report.
The questions for Ways and Means. I have no items listed out for the meeting, the work session of next week. Do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Next report is community development. Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have a report at this time, but I would like to take this time to thank the police department and one of our commissioner, Park and Rec commissioners, Kathy Gray, for coming out and supporting COVID testing. It was very hot outside, but they took good care of the community, and I just want to give them acknowledgement and thank them for coming out, and also thank the residents for coming out. I know COVID testing is kind of scary, but they came out strong, and we really appreciate them wanting to know their status. And so we just want to thank the community for really supporting our community partners. Thank you.
Any questions for Councilwoman Moore? Councilwoman Moore, I don't have any items listed on the agenda for you for the work session. Do you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
Next report will be Law Committee, Mr. Brown.
I do not have any committee reports at this time or items to add to the agenda. I did want to piggyback off of Councilwoman Moore's remarks concerning COVID testing in Forest Park. I actually did go out on the Wednesday, July 1st, and it was very hot. And there was at least, by my count, at least 500 people actively in the parking lot waiting for, I waited for probably almost an hour, 58 minutes to get tested. So I did want to extend that sentiment to thank the Forest Park Police Department for going out and directing traffic. And then also a tremendous thanks to the residents. I know there are a lot of narratives out there that people aren't getting tested or people aren't taking this as seriously as they should be, but that's not happening in Forest Park. That is not the case, because residents were out there. They waited patiently in the hot sun. It was really a strong display of community and a commitment to, as we are all facing, to fight this pandemic and do our part in getting tested.
Thank you both of you. Just along that same line, and I'm sure we have them somewhere and we can make them available, but if there are citizens of Forest Park who, for whatever reason, could not make it to any one of those test sites on those days, I know that the county has at least 3 other sites that will be coming up this week. I think probably the closest to us, and I don't have it on hand right now, but that's something that we can provide to you. There will be a site, I believe, in Mount Healthy, and I think there's also going to be a site in North College Hill. So I will make sure that our switchboard has that information for if there are any residents of Forest Park who, for whatever reason, missed out on it. We'll go next to the next committee report is Human Resources Committee. Councilwoman Holt is absent. And then the next committee report will be Public Safety, Councilwoman Nuss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have a report at this time, but also would like to extend the thank you to Councilwoman Moore and We Thrive and everyone else who assisted in that COVID testing. I went on Saturday with my family, and it was an experience I don't want to repeat. But it reminded me of the lines in Kings Island. So as soon as you thought you were the last person, it just kept flooding in and flooding in. So I was really, really, really proud of that work, and such a huge thank you to all the volunteers and officers that did that. On June 20th, we had another food distribution from our Forest Park Community of Churches resource team. We passed out 350 boxes and bags of food, as well as hand sanitizer, masks, laundry detergent, all sorts of items. And We fed over 700 individuals. We had a great deal of elderly people that took part in that, which was a little bit different this time. So if you're seeing that they are more in need because they're not getting out as much, we did more deliveries than we'd done. I personally did 19 deliveries. There was a lot more need in that regard from our elderly community. And so if you know about anyone that needs that or looking for those food, even with the other food distributions we have, please let us know. That was held at Kemper Road Christian Church. Kids got some goodie bags as well and snack bags. The next one will be held on July 18th, which is a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. This one again will be at the Word of Deliverance Church, and we'll pass out more food.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilwoman Ness? Thank you.
I do have to say a shout out. Thank you, Ms. Herbie, Councilwoman Herbie, for supplying some of our precinct execs for the voter registration information and packets. So thank you for that.
Okay. I have no items on the agenda for you, Councilwoman Ness. Do you have anything to add?
I would like to inquire about our Juneteenth. I don't know if we have a proclamation as existing for our city concerning Juneteenth, but I would like to have a brief little chat about that.
Okay. I don't know if we have the work session, we can certainly talk about it. I will tell you though that that has been brought up in a couple of different by a couple of different people, councilmen as well as staff, in a couple of different ways. I will be, if we have a meeting, we'll talk about it at that point. If not, I'll be happy to share with you what we've shared with them. But I will, if there is, whenever we have a next council meeting, we will add that to the agenda.
Mayor?
Yes.
Following up on the testing, I did check Hamilton County website, and North College Hill was testing today. Delhi Township is testing tomorrow at the former Remke property, and Coleraine is testing on Wednesday, July 8th at the Public Works Department on 4160 Springdale Road.
Okay, well, if you would pass that information on to the city manager, and he can make sure that the receptionist has it in case there are calls. Okay, the next report will be public improvement and facilities. Mr. Sylvester.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a report at this time.
Thank you. I have no items on the agenda for you at this point. Do you have anything to add?
In question of I had a couple of residents that contact me about all of what's going on with the COVID, and there was a question about the requirement of masks. So I've just commented them to direct them to the city and for any questions in regards to that. So, but if there's ever a point where the city may be required to enact on masks, I would ask the city manager or you as mayor, how would that communication be exposed to the community?
And I can tell you this briefly. At this point, the city has we've not enacted anything. Primarily, it's in the hands of each individual business at this point, and whatever decision that business would make would be what we would expect our citizens to obviously follow. And at the point that when we do reach a point where we need to make some decisions about it, it would be something that will be discussed with staff and council in a work session to begin with.
Okay.
Thank you. The next item is mine, in government relations and communications. I have no report. I would answer any questions if there are any. Hearing none, we will go to the next item number 6, the mayor's report. I don't have anything additional to add except on one issue. It's been quite some time, probably before the last election, before the Councilman Brown and Sylvester came on council, and maybe even before that, we have not provided, at least the city need let me rephrase it. The city manager, in conjunction with the city, with the law director, needs to review and hand out to all of the council people again our policies regarding the use of primarily our iPad, where emails are concerned, and just a general overview of what we can and cannot do, or should or should not do. So you can expect that will be coming in some short time, because as we all know, technology moves very fast. Things change very quickly. So we have to keep in tune and keep up with all of those changes, especially in relation to what we can and can't do. But one good rule of thumb to operate by, and this goes back any number of years, I can remember when I was working and we got our first computers, at the very top of the rules and regulations and policies that they gave us, the statement was, never do anything on this computer that you would not want your grandma to see. So I will pass that on to you in relation to the iPad or anything else. Don't ever do anything on there that you don't want Granny to know about. So that's kind of a quirky way of saying it, but meaning be very careful about what you use those iPads and or any other electronic devices for. That will conclude my report. I will answer any questions if there are any. Moving now to item number 7, City Manager's report. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. We do have a couple items I just want to bring to everyone's attention. Last week, we met with representatives of OKI. Councilor Rosalind Moore was there. She's our representative, and the mayor was there as well. But a very good discussion with regards to funding sources and how they can help us with various projects that we have either anticipated or would like to get done. And so we look forward to working with them into the future. We'll give everyone the PDF copy of that. I'll email that out tomorrow. That has kind of basically their overview of what they do and how they do it. It's very informative and very educational in terms of, gives everyone an idea, a better idea in terms of what they can and can't do. Obviously, what's going on in the city is COVID testing. Oh, excuse me. I'm glad no one's here. You didn't see me cough in my hand. Anyhow, last week we had 4 testing sites. They were all run by, and a lot of the questions that I had were with regards to, is it the city doing the testing? The governor came out early a couple of weeks ago and used 45240 zip code as a hot spot along with others, and called out, throughout in his speech. So that got a lot of attention. Our folks have been very diligent and part of the solution in terms of knowing exactly who is getting testing positive, the groups that are testing positive, how they're doing it, how they're transmitting it. And so we are, rest assured for the public that our fire department and public health are on top of knowing the situation here on the ground. Quite frankly, much better than the governor knows up in Columbus. In any event, that led to the testing that's being done up in this area. Forest Park is about 2/3 of 45240. So that includes other areas of the community up here in the northwestern suburbs. In any event, we had 4 tests last week. They had between 35 and 4,000 folks tested. They were not all Forest Park residents. That was some of the questions we had. In fact, I think we had somebody from as far away as Summit County who just happened to be traveling through and decided to stop and get tested. Those tests were made. They were not done at the city's expense. They were paid for by the county public health and the state of Ohio, the Hamilton County Public Health District. We're a member of the Hamilton County Public Health District, and that they are the primary source. They're the official governing body that governs all health aspects within the city of Forest Park. The city of Cincinnati has their own health department, their own health district. nor I think the city of Sharonville or Springdale, one of the two, have their own individual as well. In any event, we take our cues from Hamilton County Public Health. They are our experts. They are the folks who actually have can make policy and enforce policy with regards to health aspects within our community. In terms of the masks that the city of Cincinnati has required, that begins, I think, this coming Thursday. We've looked at that, we've discussed it, and we'll be working directly with, again, the experts at Hamilton County Public Health with regards to the way that they want us to proceed with that. This is a public health enforcement issue. It would be the Hamilton County Public Health enforcing the wearing of these masks in public. So we'll be working on that, and we're tied into that with our fire department and other folks in the community. So that if we will bring that up to the citizens, we'll also bring it up to city council if that becomes something that we need to get done. In terms of the hot spots, yes, they have seen, and this is a message for the community as well. It seems like the majority of the new cases are between the ages of 18 and 30. So the young folks are the ones who are the new cases, this new spike, this new normal that creates this hotspot, and that I think they have a lot of that sense of invincibility. So that we need to get the message out to the young folks of this community that they need to be just as careful and just as aware when they're out. Practice social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands, all of that good stuff. And if you're positive or you're feeling sick, don't go to your friend's house to play Xbox. Don't go down to the basketball court. Stay home, make sure you're healthy, and don't infect yourselves, don't infect your friends, and don't infect your family by bringing it back to them, by being around people who are infected. So this is really more of a public service announcement than it is anything. But that group of 18 to 30, we need to get our hands around that and make sure that they understand that even though they may not feel bad, they may not have to go to the hospital and get all the problems that all the old folks have. They're just as sick, and this virus can affect them for years when they're older. That it can have long-term lasting respiratory problems. I'm not a medical expert, but I know that my kids are the same way. I have to get after them. That you may not feel sick, you may not feel bad, you may say, oh, it's no big deal, you may just think you have the flu, and you just go about your business because you're a healthy person. Stop the spread, stay home, and self quarantine. That's the main thing we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for city manager on that? Okay, anything else done?
That's it.
Next reports is other, starting with the law director, Mr. Wyckoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting we had, I did a release and registration form, reviewed it for soccer registration. I looked at the economic development incentive agreements for OKL and Kid Coffee and gave approval of those. I worked with Mr. Jones on the city's obligation regarding cremation or burial of indigent individuals. I don't know if all of you are aware, but the Ohio Revised Code places the burden upon the city to take action towards burials or cremation of indigents if no family member claims them. And unfortunately, because of the way the statute's written, there in our recent situation, there are family members there, but no one wants to claim the deceased. But the way the revised code reads is when they refuse to claim the deceased, it becomes the city's obligation. So we did some work on that. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for our law director? John, I have one in relation to what you were just talking about. Has the as the code changed, I seem to recall that a number of years ago, the city could not opt for cremation unless the family agreed to it. If there was a family member available and present, they could request a full-blown funeral, and we couldn't do the creation just simply because it was cheaper. Is that still the case?
Well, now the revised code specifically indicates that we're obligated for burial or cremation.
Okay.
So it's
Either or.
it's either or, and it's limited to those two activities.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other questions for our law director? Hearing none, we go next to the clerk of council, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report that ordinance numbers 13-2020 and 18-2020, as well as resolution numbers 18-2020 through 18-2020 through 22-2020 were posted as required, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for clerk of council? Hearing now, we go new business. Item number 9. Is there a motion, Councilwoman Irving?
I would move to suspend the rules requiring the reading in full on 2 separate days and read for the first time by title only ordinance number 19-2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Been moved and second that we suspend the rules requiring the reading in full on 2 separate days and read by title only for the first time, ordinance number 19-2020. Is there any discussion?
Just that it was posted as required.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to suspend?
Brown. Brown.
Yes.
Irving.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
Sylvester.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed 6-0. Next item on the agenda, item A, ordinance number 19-2020. Would the clerk please read that ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 19-2020. An ordinance amending chapter 150 zoning code regulating short-term rentals in residential districts and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion, Councilwoman Moore?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 19-2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second that we adopt ordinance 19-2020. Is there a discussion?
Yes. As mentioned under the work session above, staff recommends approval of this ordinance, which would regulate short-term rentals in residential districts. Please note that the ordinance number 19-2020 was posted 6 days prior to this meeting, and I urge adoption.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we did receive one letter with regards to specifically for this item. It was received prior to 5 o'clock this evening is the meeting night, and I think we should bring it up. I did receive 3 other emails about a month ago that did not refer to this meeting, but did refer to the item. So I will essentially read one of those. They're basically all the same, but this one was specific and asked that it be read for the council meeting. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read it. It's regards, dear council members, or excuse me, members of council. I'm sending this email in support of ordinance number 19-2020, which is up for consideration during the July 6th general meeting. As you know, this ordinance is a clarification of the existing laws of the city. If adopted, a homeowner would be prohibited to offer to rent their home for temporary housing as a business venture without a special exception ruling from the city. This is a positive step forward for all interested parties, the homeowner, the neighbors, and the city. As a homeowner interested in operating a home-based business of this nature, a person can clearly understand the city's requirements to function in this capacity. Requiring a special exception provides the owner of the opportunity to work with the city and comply with the requirements from the beginning of the process. My understanding of the special exception process is that the properties which are contiguous to the applicant property are notified and are given an opportunity to participate in public hearings related to the exception application. As a result, each neighbor would be aware of the potential activities on the property. This is important as we have seen the negative impacts based upon recent activities related to the temporary rentals in our area. The city would also benefit because there would be an awareness of the addresses which offer the temporary rental services. The city would be aware of this business model in the same manner as they are aware of other businesses within its boundaries, whether they are home base or within a business district. Since this is not a traditional residential dwelling, there may be additional services that the city may need to provide, to offer or provide more frequently than that of a traditional dwelling. If this holds true, then the city should require the business owner to be responsible for the cost of the additional service, e.g., police, fire, public works. Under the current process, they are assumed to be operating as a typical homeowner, which results in a residential cost sharing model for a potential high touch situation. Regards, Wendell T. Burns. And carbon copy to Mrs. To the HOA 1 and HOA 2 members. We did receive letters from the that were against the ordinance, and they did not specifically request to be read or to be included in this agenda. But I bring them up to let you know that they were essentially generated from the REIA, Real Estate Investors Association, here locally, and two of which were from folks who were not Forest Park residents. One was a Forest Park resident, and they were against the ordinance. However, it was clear that there was and I'm not going to say a misunderstanding, that this ordinance essentially was changing or eliminating something that was already allowed. We've always maintained that this is not an allowed use within our ordinances, and that this simply clarifies the fact that also actually adds a provision that allows folks, if you want to do it, because right now this provision I don't believe exists.
Right.
If you want to do it, you can ask for a special exception. And the good part about that is you have to go through the public hearing process, you get your neighbors notified, and people can have input into it. But it does allow an avenue for folks who want to do this to do it, given which currently right now, in our opinion, does not exist. So this clarifies our ordinance that says you can't do it if there was ever any question about it, unless you go through this process. And so that's the gist of the information that I received. And
Right.
Chris Anderson is here. He can answer any questions and go further if we need any more explanation.
What is the penalty if they don't go through seeking a special exception?
There is no penalty because right now, if it's like, it would be like anything else that would come before planning commission. If you go out and you build something without going through the process, then planning commission would have the option of causing you to remove it. In this case, if you did something in violation of what is current law, then you could be cited. I don't know, Chris might know, I don't think we have a monetary penalty in existence right now. Mr. Anderson?
It's a standard zoning penalty. It's a single penalty section that applies to all sections of the zoning code, essentially. And that's a minor misdemeanor. which I understand to be of up to $150, no jail time.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a really quick clarifying point, because as I understand it, Airbnbs technically were not allowed because that would be operating a business outside of your home, and that's against the zoning code, because the homes are zoned for residential and not commercial uses, correct?
Right.
And this ordinance not only prohibits that, but just as like a clarifying point, it does allow for it if you follow proper channels, but it would still be prohibitive to short-term rentals less than 30 days. Would the special exception allow that if someone just wanted to have, still operated Airbnb, went through the proper channels, but then only wanted to do like a week or so, like 5-7 days?
It doesn't really address temporary situations like that, but a person could apply for a special exception in order to get it approved within the zoning code for their particular location.
Okay, so just for further clarifying points, technically because it wasn't allowed before, but with your input and the city manager's input and everyone else, had enough foresight to not completely prohibit people from making, using their home to generate income, especially in time of recession, by adding this special, by adding the process and applying for special exception within the ordinance, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that correct. Okay. All right, just making sure, because I know we didn't read every email sent regarding to wait on this ordinance. However, if we welcome anyone to read the full ordinance, we only read it by title only, but if they can read the full ordinance, I'm sure they would see that you still are able to engage in this particular behavior by following the proper channels. And this is not an outright prohibition against Airbnbs or someone to make income off of their property, or people being very industrious and being small business owners. In Forest Park, we actually welcome small business owners. We would like that, but you do have to follow proper channels. And in order to mitigate the particular incident that even brought about this ordinance, this is the purpose of this law, correct?
Yes.
And going along with that, I think that it's good that we have now essentially a procedure in place to allow for this to happen. But what is the turnaround time? What in terms of how they're going to get the word out and share this information with people that this is now the protocol to follow? What are they examining in terms of this case by case basis, and at what point is the community that they reside in come into the picture? I feel like there needs to be a lot more information surrounding what those requirements would be to actually, achieve a special exception.
So in order to apply for a special exception, you file an application, provide some accompanying information related to that application, and pay an application fee to the city. At that point, we schedule it for the next available planning commission meeting, and we advertise the application and the hearing to the general public through the newspaper, and then to adjacent neighbors, and we do that by mail. And so that they have an opportunity to look at the application, also to comment on it and or attend the meeting. And so in speaking of turnaround time, you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Anything else? I would just add that this is not new. We've done this for, in terms of a special exception. We've been doing special exceptions for years. All we're saying here is we're just following the same process and pattern that we've always followed.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
further, Mayor, there
Yes,
was some confusion and among the general public and others about the legality of operating these before this started. This
right.
clarifies that you can't do it unless you follow these rules. If everything stays the same as it is right now, there won't be any special exception. It's just prohibited. This is actually, from a real estate investor's standpoint, actually is an opportunity to make a case that it's needed or that it's not going to impact the neighborhood. At least it gives you an opportunity to make a case. And before you didn't have that opportunity. So it's really not a prohibition of it. It's a clarification that it was already prohibited and now you can get an exception.
Okay, any other discussion?
Lastly, how long will that exception be permitted? Because you said it's not for temporary use, but would this be ongoing, or would one have to continue to apply for this special exception?
So the special exception, unless there's some condition put on by the planning commission, which they do have the power to limit it in time, is ongoing for the applicant. So if you continue to, say you applied for one and were granted a special exception, as long as you continue to be the person living at that house, you would have that without needing to renew it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Kirby?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes,
Moore?
Yes.
Nuss?
Yes.
Sylvester?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
ordinance 19-2020 passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda, item B, ordinance number 20-2020. Would the clerk please read this ordinance in full?
Ordinance number 20-2020, an ordinance establishing the local coronavirus relief fund and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city has been allocated funding from Federal CARES Act by the state of Ohio by the passage of SB 310 by the 133rd General Assembly. And whereas in order to comply with the provisions of SB 310, it is necessary to establish a separate fund to account for usage of the funding. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Ohio, Section 1, that the local coronavirus relief fund is hereby established. Section 2, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the city for the reason that the immediate creation of said fund is that separate accounting is required by the state of Ohio to ensure the proper expenditure of the relief funding. Therefore, this ordinance shall take effect and be in full force from and immediately after passage and approval by the mayor.
Question before I ask for a motion, I have a question for either the city manager or Harlita, if she's still there. Don, should this still read 310 or is it now 418?
I think it's 418.
Okay, in that case, what I would do, when the motion is made, I would ask that the maker of the motion amend it to say 310/418. That way we're covered by both, because they did change the number.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on ordinance 20-2020? Councilwoman Herbie.
I would also like to ask a question. John, should I make the motion as written and then ask for an amendment? Or can my initial motion, make that change?
You should move as written, and then there should be a motion to amend.
All right. I would move to adopt ordinance number 20-2020.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adopt ordinance 20-2020.
I would also move to amend the ordinance to include in the text changing SB 310 to SB 310-418 in the two instances where it appears in the ordinance.
I would say 310/418. So you're talking about two different things and you're not running all the numbers together.
Yeah, I think it's actually a House bill.
Yeah, it is.
It's House Bill 418.
Yeah.
All right, then I would move to amend it from SB 310 to HB 310-418 in the two instances where it appears in the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we amend the ordinance to reflect the changes from House to from Senate to House bill and 310/418. Is there a discussion?
Not on the amendment. It's, well, just to make it reflect what it is appropriately designated at the state.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Would the clerk please call the roll on the amended motion?
Just the amendment itself.
The amended itself first.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Sylvester,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Herbie.
Yes.
The amendment passes 6-0. Now we're at the main motion as amended.
I just want to mention that all this is doing is creating a separate fund to receive these monies, out of which will be the expenditures made by the city in connection with dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. And I would urge adoption of the ordinance.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Would the clerk please call the roll on the amended motion?
Moore,
Yes.
Nuss,
Yes.
Sylvester,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Herbie,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. The motion ordinance 2020 as amended passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 21-2020. Would the clerk please read that ordinance in full?
Ordinance number 21-2020. Amending annual 2020 appropriation ordinance 17-2020. Whereas the 2020 annual appropriations were adopted by council on December 16, 2019, and whereas the anticipated revenue and expenditures are coming in as anticipated for the general fund and the other funds of the city, and appropriations must be within available resources per the Ohio Revised Code. And whereas an amended certificate of resources is being requested from the Hamilton County Budget Commission. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Ohio, Section 1, that the 2020 annual appropriation ordinances 31-2019, 02-2020, 15-2020, 16-2020, and 17-2020, as is hereby amended, making the following additional appropriations and budget modifications for the following funds. Fund Department appropriations, local coronavirus relief fund, non-departmental other. Appropriation total $318,897. Department total $318,897. Total local coronavirus relief fund, $318,897. Section 2. And the Director of Finance Treasurer is hereby authorized to draw warrants on the city treasury for payments from any of the foregoing appropriations upon receiving proper certification and vouchers, therefore approved by the board or officer authorized by law to approve the same, or an ordinance or resolution of council to make expenditures, provided that no warrants shall be drawn or paid for salaries or wages except the persons employed by authority of and in accordance with law or ordinance. Provided further that appropriation for contingencies can only be expended upon approval of a 2/3 vote of council for items of expense constituting a legal obligation against the city and for the purposes other than those covered by other specific appropriations herein made. Section 3. This appropriation ordinance shall be in full force and take effect on its passage pursuant to the provisions of section 12.05 of the chapter of the municipality of Forest Park, Ohio.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I would move adoption of ordinance number 20-2020.
Second.
Second.
21, isn't it?
I'm sorry, ordinance number 21-2020.
Okay, and second by Councilwoman Nuss, right? Okay. It's been moved and second that we adopt ordinance number 21-2020. That's been read by title only, so, I mean, that's been read in full. So will the clerk then please call the roll?
Nuss. Nuss.
Yes.
Sylvester.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Herbie.
Yes,
Johnson.
Yes,
Moore.
Yes.
ordinance 21-2020 passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is a motion to suspend. Councilwoman Herbie,
yes, I would move to suspend the rules requiring the reading in full and read resolution number 23-2020 and 24-2020 by title only.
Second.
been moved and second that we suspend the rules requiring the reading in full on 2 separate occasions and read resolutions 23 and 24-2020 by title only. Is there any discussion?
No,
Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to suspend?
Sylvester.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Herbie.
yes,
Johnson.
Yes,
Moore.
Yes.
Nuss.
Yes.
motion to suspend passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item D, resolution 23-2020. Would the clerk please read this resolution by title only?
Resolution number 23-2020. A resolution consenting to the execution of a redevelopment incentive agreement between the City of Forest Park and Phillips Edison to facilitate a project at Forest Park Square.
Is there a motion, Councilwoman Herbie?
I would move adoption of resolution number 23-2020.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adopt resolution 23-2020. Is there any discussion?
Yes, as discussed in the work session, Phillips Edison, who owns the shopping center across from the municipal building where the Kroger is, has been working with Kroger to do a renovation expansion of that particular shopping center. They will invest about $500,000 to help with the expansion, a small expansion of Kroger to accommodate click list and facade improvements, and about $250,000 to do parking lot renovations. And Kroger will invest about $1.8 million to do renovations inside for a total improvement of about $2.5 million in renovations and improvements. And they are asking for a redevelopment incentive. The staff is recommending a $10,000 redevelopment grant, which will help us to maintain and keep Kroger for at least the next 10 years because they will be entering into signing a lease with Phillips Edison to do that. And I would urge adoption of this resolution.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll on resolution 23-2020?
Brown.
Yes.
Herbie.
Yes,
Johnson.
Yes,
Moore.
Yes.
Nuss.
Oh, yes.
Sylvester.
Yes.
Resolution 23, 2020 passes 6-0. Next item is item E, resolution 24-2020. Clerk, please read this resolution by title only.
Resolution number 24-2020. A resolution changing the name of a portion of Ballinger Road to Versailles Drive.
Is there a motion, Councilwoman Moore?
Yes, thank you. I move to adopt resolution number 24-2020.
Second,
We move to second that we adopt resolution -20 2420. Is there a discussion, Councilwoman Moore?
Yes, just the staff recommends this resolution for the name change to Versailles Drive, and I urge adoption of this resolution.
Any further discussion?
What's
Question?
I don't have a problem with it. Just, is that because those, I don't even know why.
Mr. Anderson, are you still with us?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I am.
Do you want to explain that?
It relates to the
I think there's a
city.
map. Everybody should have a map you might want to look at.
Yeah.
For the people out there that don't have a map, I'm asking.
Ballinger Drive exists in two sections in the city that don't connect to each other. There's the part that runs behind King Chapel Church, running from Sharon Road to Southland. And then there's another section, again, not connected to the first section, that just runs about 150 to 175 feet off of Sharon Road and ends. It actually, what it does is it connects with a private drive that's known as Versailles Drive. And right now there's a street sign that says Ballinger on that second section. And it causes some confusion. But more importantly, it's causing some complications in the routing of 911 calls that need to go to Versailles apartments. And so after conferring with the county and studying the issue and the reasons that the road is named what it is, where it is, our recommendation is to change just that small portion to Versailles Drive, and we'll install a new street sign and change the city maps to reflect that if this resolution gets passed by council.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Nelson, did that pretty well answer your question?
Thank you.
There are no other discussions. Would the clerk please call the roll on resolution 24-2020?
Herbie,
yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes,
Nuss.
Yes.
Sylvester,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Resolution 24-2020 passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item F. It's a motion, Councilwoman Moore.
yes, I move to for council to recess from August 4th, 2020 through September 13th, 2020.
Second,
We moved and second that we take our annual council recess beginning actually from August 4th, 2020 through September 13th, 2020, which would mean that we would our last meeting date would be August 3rd, and we would return on the 14th for a work session. So any questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for recess, let it be known by the sign of voting aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Anything else for the good of the order? Anything else from anybody else? Sally,
Yes.
if you give me a call so we can arrange for me to sign all these sometime tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
There's
welcome.
no other business to come before the body. Is there any other business to come before the body? Hearing none, and the meeting would be adjourned.